Run away! Hello dear viewers, and welcome back to the ancient dwarven hold of our ancestors. Today I shall be talking about the game Days Gone. Days Gone is a story-based third-person action game developed by Bend Studio and published by PlayStation Publishing LLC. It was released for PC on the 18th of May 2021. Before we get started, dear viewers, if you like what I do down here in the Ancient Hold and you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. Perhaps give the video a thumbs up, and if you like, maybe leave a comment with your own thoughts on the game. It all means so much to my little channel. In Days Gone, you take on the role of Deacon St. John, a biker and drifter who is striving to survive in the northwest of America after a virus outbreak that has turned most of the population into crazed zombies who will tear you apart if you give them the opportunity. You will search for items, crafting materials and ammo for your weapons as you move around the open world, avoiding hordes of nasties and trying to discover what has happened to your loved one. I believe this is the first PlayStation port to PC that I've tackled on the channel. I don't tend to play many big titles and generally focus on lesser known and indie games. But you literally did an Elder Scrolls Oblivion remaster and V-Rising, old dwarf, and they are pretty mainstream games. Look. Yes, well, I know, okay, most of the time I focus on lesser known and indie games. I was curious about this one when not long ago I saw some footage of it. I wasn't sure if it was just another zombie game or perhaps it was a solid game in its own right. A friend told me it was really worth checking out and it was available on PC, so I purchased it on the GOG sale for half price and gave it a go. There was a recent update to this game that was pitched as the remastered edition, which brings in upgrade graphics and features. I'm playing the GOG version, and as far as I can see, it currently isn't updated to this newer version. So this video is about the game as it has been for the last few years. If I think this is any good, then I imagine graphical updates and such will usually make things better. Maybe. Graphically, Days Gone is a good-looking PlayStation game from modern times. The open world feels alive and lived in, even if most things look knackered from the events of the game, with the strewn vehicles, downtrodden buildings, and signs of rampaging zombies all over the place. This is an open world game, meaning you mostly go wherever you like. There needs to be variety in the scenery, and Days Gone does well with it. There are great forested areas, shaded away from the sun, with valleys and hills, and then there are desolate desert-like areas, with the bleaching sun pressing down. Then there are great mountains and other areas covered in snow. So the graphics are what you would expect from this sort of mainstream, high-collar type thing. That isn't to suggest it is mediocre, no, not at all. But it is at that level that is expected of these single-player PlayStation games. It looks good, is the general gist here. The open parts of the world are beautiful, as if not featuring in such a destroyed setting, perhaps coming across to the inhabitants in this same way. Then there are some places, like dark caves, that can really evoke fear, shadowy places with long clinging shadows and eerie darkness. The game does a good job of portraying both the beauty of the world and the desperate and dark reality of a post-zombie outbreak. Your character, Deacon, is what you might expect him to appear as, being a former member of a biker gang. He looks cool, detailed and authentic, and as you'll be looking at him most of the time, that's a good thing. The non-zombie characters all look well put together and are more than enough in terms of detail, appearing like actual people that might populate this post-apocalyptic world. The models are well done and capable of portraying emotions really well. There is a lot of individualism, with unique characters that aren't simply generic survivor number 10, etc. The different type of zombies themselves look pretty scary, with vacant stares in their faces as they charge, intent to get their gruesome hands on you. They can jitter around, moving with sporadic motion until they see you and make a beeline in your direction. Their nests and places of congregation really feel unnerving. The sound design of Days Gone really adds to the atmosphere. The zombies make horrid noises and after spotting you will make some kind of desperate anger in your direction and scream blood-curdling things at you. The music and the ambient noise really adds to the unsafe and worrying atmosphere. Numerous times when searching through a location, the sound would have this really eerie feel to it, like I was about to be jumped upon by some nasty. It had me on edge many times. All of the dialogue is voiced in Days Gone, with the voice actors doing a very good job of it. The portrayal of most characters is approached thoughtfully, really portraying different personalities and emotions. Deacon isn't simply a one-dimensional generic biker dude. He comes across as a well-rounded character. Overall, the voice work is really solid and is enough to suffice a story-driven endeavour such as this. You start the game with a cutscene. You and your fellow biker, Boozer, along with your wife Sarah, are trying to escape the madness and destruction of the hordes as they terrorise the city. Sarah is stabbed by a demented child and is taken to a rooftop where the authorities take her to a refugee camp, while you stay with Boozer, who is also injured. We then zoom 2 years into the future as we find you and Boozer riding through the forest after a bad guy. You are then sort of led through an introduction that gets you to grips with the game's systems. This is mostly good, but I got frustrated at times as I was forced into a small section of the world, lest I get the game telling me I'm leaving the mission zone. The other thing I disliked and still dislike in the rest of the game is the ability to save, or not save, which was the case. You can only save if you're near your bike or bed where you can sleep. This means if you're away from your bike for any extended time, you cannot save until you make it back to it. So if you run about for 10-15 minutes away from your bike and then get killed, you'll be sent back to the last checkpoint, which means you just wasted a lot of time. I guess I'm a PC player that expects to be able to save a game whenever I want, so this restriction came across as annoying. Once you do the intro section, you are let out into the open world. You will get a bike, which allows you to move through the world to different locations for missions and other tasks. You can drive manually, but you can also fast travel to certain locations you've visited, which will cost a certain amount of fuel in your bike. The main game loop of Days Gone revolves around you driving around the world map to different locations and missions that can be story based or simply side quest stuff like clearing out a nest of zombies known as Freakers or exploring Nero sites for stat upgrades and the like. Whenever I was heading somewhere, I would nearly always get sidetracked by looking through some cluster of buildings or site that had stuff to loot or nests to burn out. There are of course the herbs and plants that you can collect on your travels, which isn't the most exciting content, but hey, it's part of the game, and you can hand them in for reputation with one of the encampments. You will inevitably need to engage in combat with both zombie types and the living. Indeed, the living can be more destructive than the mindless undead walkers. Initially, you have a pistol, a knife, and whatever weapons you can find on baddies, or in the surrounding location. It can be a bit of a slog early in the game as you struggle to kill groups of them, but as you get a hold of better weapons and importantly obtain skill upgrades, it gets a lot better. Combat will feature a use of melee and ranged weaponry, as per what you manage to find on your travels and purchased at camps. Besides the pistol, there are shotguns, rifles, sniper rifles, assault rifles, Uzis, and others. You can make use of them for different situations, and it is wise to have a good mix of them if you can. It stays on the theme of desperation, survival, and literally not having enough hands to hold, but I was disappointed that you could only take one weapon from each category. That means one pistol, one primary weapon, and one special. I would have enjoyed simply to carry a hand weapon and any other 2 weapons that I'd like. Besides all the firearms, there are melee weapons in Days Gone. There are all sorts of different weapons you can find out in the world, from planks of wood, baseball bats, fire axes and machete-like things. It is dangerous to get into melee with any foe, but you will find yourself doing so as baddies quickly make the distance towards you, and also to save some ammo. If you find something decent, you can deal some good damage, but if all you have is your knife, then it is going to take a while to kill anything. Weapons have durability too, which means you'll need to find scrap out in the world to repair them. There are numerous crafted weapons as well, which can make things quite interesting. Swinging around melee weapons and engaging foes in a firefight is fun, and it can feel very satisfying, especially if you pull off several headshots when a group of freakers are running at you full pelt. Unlocking combat skills helps a lot with proceedings, so once you get a few, the fighting can feel a lot more fluid. You have access to throwable weapons too, like Molotov cocktails and grenades, which can do a lot of damage but are in short supply, so you need to use them wisely. The story of Days Gone is told through your actions as the player, alongside cutscenes and dialogue between characters. I won't go into lots of detail, but it is a decent enough romp that I found interesting enough and didn't want to skip through, mostly, turning into an afterthought as you fight through all the zombies and other baddies. There are several human factions in the world that you'll do missions for and such that have reputation systems, allowing you to access more equipment and parts for your bike. There is also another faction too, known as Rippers, who appear to be humans but not inflicted by the virus, but rather the loss of their sanity. They are crazy nutbars talking of prophecy while inflicting violence on anyone they can get their hands on. Besides the skills which you can unlock through gaining XP from missions and killing stuff, you can upgrade your bike. And it is very much worth doing, dear viewer, as you will come to rely on it to get around and away from dangerous situations. It starts off pretty underpowered, perhaps too underpowered to be honest, as it feels really slow in the beginning of the game. You can get all sorts of new parts though from vendors in different camps that will upgrade the speed, lower the noise and fuel consumption, among other things. Fuel consumption, yes. I have never owned a motorcycle, but I kind of assume that the fuel tank has more fuel in it than for 1 kilometre. The fuel consumption in Days Gone, especially early on, is kind of silly. You can't go too far without having to stop and try and find more fuel. I know this is to get you to stop at more places and investigate things, but it can be a pain in the bum to have to stop and find fuel too often. Luckily, there are many sites where you can find canisters full of fuel, and they respawn too, so they're not really scarce, which is good. The main game loop of doing missions, both for yourself and certain factions, alongside scavenging and fighting stuff, is a good one. Days Gone does suffer a little from the chores problem, where stuff can feel like something you have to do to cross it off a list. But on the whole, I would say it's generally good fun. The world is interesting enough to ride about in and stop when you want to. There is certainly a constant danger going on. You can be knocked off your bike by freakers if you're not careful, or you could walk into a horde of zombies, at which point you brick yourself and run or ride away as quickly as you can with your heart beating like mad. What I didn't like, and generally don't enjoy, is forced stealth missions. These are missions that will have you sneaking past other characters and hiding in shrubberies and dustbins. You must stealth and cannot get caught or it will fail. There are in-game reasons provided, but I just really dislike these sorts of missions and find them more of a frustration I have to try and slog through rather than being some cool stealthy experience. I had a bit of a moan, but really, Days Gone is an enjoyable game, one that is well worth playing. The atmosphere hits really well, and the danger, even when you think you might be relatively safe, is always there. Numerous times I thought I was okay, beside the odd runner, when I'd suddenly run right into a horde of them and proceed to run or ride away in panic. There is enough danger and concern that Days Gone feels threatening, but not so much as to feel oppressive, with you feeling like you can venture out without being completely overwhelmed. I enjoyed the combat, getting headshots feels really good, and the melee is visceral and meaty. There is a variety of weapons for you to employ, and there are environmental features you can make use of, like petrol tanks that can cause widespread damage to a ravaging horde. The story is compelling enough to keep you interested, with believable and authentic voice work. The world itself comes across really well with a post-apocalyptic landscape without humanity being completely absent from proceedings. It is still recent and there is a lot of the old world still around, which is interesting. Things happen without your input too, like coming across marauders fighting a load of freakers, allowing you to slip by or engage with at your own leisure. You can also simply come across survivors that need your help that you can then send to one of the different camps. I like stuff like this, where the world is a living place, not just there to react to your own actions. Overall, I had a good time with this game, and if you're into third-person open-world games, then I think you'll enjoy it too. There is that zombie game Burnout, of course, which I can see compelling some not to want to engage with another one, but I believe they've done enough here that it doesn't come across as just another zombie survival game. At full price, I would say the game is worth it, but it is on sale fairly often, which makes it a really good buy. So if you like what you see here and what I've said, then consider checking it out. And there we go, dear viewers, another video from me here down in the Ancient Hold. Thank you for watching this far. I hope you enjoyed it, dear viewers, and that you are doing well. I shall see you next time.